for this video, we're going to go over the Unity Netcode for Game Objects library, and we're going to see how to connect that to a Linux server. So we're going to have a headless remote server, we're going to get the project file all set up, and then we're going to connect to the server. So we're going to kind of handle all that stuff, how to transfer files over, how to set up a basic firewall, just the basic settings in order to get this stuff working. So I've got a very simple project here. Really what we're doing is we're just bare bones, we just want to get a connection established, and then we're just going to send some pings over. So whatever project you have, you're probably going to have it working on your local area network. What we're doing is we're just switching the IP address down here from a local IP address to a public one, and making it so that you can connect to that public IP address. So what we've got for this project, just a network manager object that is going to have the network manager script. You're going to want to go down here, make sure you select transport. I'm going to be using the Unity transport, the newer one, but you can also use UNet. I think that will work as well. So then you've got the transport on that script as well. Then just make sure you're able to change the IP address, so that's what we're going to be doing, just switching that to a public one and the port as well. So if you're using UNet, it's going to be a little different. I think it's like right up here somewhere, but either one should be fine. Okay, the other object we have is the kind of game manager. So this is our custom scripts. We're going to put a network object script on there just so that we can use RPCs. And then I've created this server script that's going to handle the logic just to kind of when the server loads up, it's going to say start server as well. So what that's going to do is, since you can't press this button here, the start server button, on a headless version, the script is going to do that automatically. So we'll go into that one real quick there, just into the script. So on start, we're going to grab the command line arguments, and that's, if you've ever done like web development or stuff, that's pretty standard. Like it'll be like start and then -s, something like that. So we're just adding that parameter here so that it kind of recognizes we have to run with certain stuff going on. So this down here doesn't have to be -s. It could be like start server or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't even need the s, you could, or the dash. You could just do an s. But I'm going to do this. Just remember what you put here. So yeah, we're grabbing the command line arguments. We're just going to loop through those. If one of the arguments is whatever string you choose, now we're going to do this logic. So we're going to print out a message. You'll be able to see that in the Linux terminal. We're going to start the network manager as a server. So that's kind of the equivalent of pressing the button. Then we're going to have the other stuff here is kind of optional. It's just so that we can actually see that there's connections going on. But really all you need here is line 19. That's going to set up the server, people can connect to it. This other stuff is just kind of for visuals. So this one here, we're going to do whenever someone connects, we're just going to call a function down here that I just made up. And it's just going to print out the connection ID of whoever connected. And then I'm also going to start a coroutine that is going to just ping all the clients every couple seconds. So on the server side, it's going to be doing this. It's just going to wait a couple seconds, and then on a loop, it's just going to keep sending a ping. It's going to call an RPC on the client side, and that's this client RPC over here. Again, I don't really want to get into the whole RPC system and how it works. This is just like bare bones. Just make sure you're inheriting from network behavior, and you should be good to go. Yeah, so this is just what we're going to use as the test case, just so that we can see some messages going back and forth, and then you know like the connection is working. Okay, so that's the script, and we've got our project all set up here. We've got our network manager. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get a Linux server so that we can actually put the project on the server. So there's a couple different places you can go for that. I'm not really going to cover the purchasing process here, just because everyone's going to be using something different. But what you're looking for is a VPS. So some of these sites are going to have like WordPress or Shared or something like that. This isn't really what you want. You want root access. You want kind of your own thing. Whereas these ones you're kind of sharing, and sometimes they're going to limit what software you can install. So that might, even though it looks like it's working, that might be blocking Unity. So you want to make sure you're getting a VPS hosting. You don't need a dedicated server. That's more like if your game is actually in production, maybe you want an actual physical computer on the rack, but just VPS is good for what we're doing. So if we go to something like DigitalOcean, this is another one. You'll see the same kind of thing in, I think it's Solutions here, right? You're going to see some web hosting and that kind of thing. So again, you want to make sure you have VPS hosting. So purchase one of those. You're just going to, if you're just kind of practicing and just setting up, you're just going to need usually minimum specs, just enough to install a Unity build. So you're not going to need anything really complex. Just start with the cheap stuff to begin with, just to make sure the connection's working, and then you can always scale it up later. So whatever service that you use here, you're going to get a IP address and some other information. So I've just opened up, I kind of took an email from, this is with Namecheap, this is how they do it. They're going to send you an email. I think with DigitalOcean you have to like log on and it's visible in there on your account somewhere. But however you do it, you want to find what the IP address is that they're going to give you. The port they want you to connect on, probably going to be 22. The username they provide you, so that might not always be root. I think some other service providers have slightly longer names. And then whatever password they give you. So this is just a temporary password. We're going to change that once we get into our server, but this is the initial one to log in for that very first time. So just kind of get this information. This is what we're going to use to connect. Okay, so in order to connect to the server, what we're going to need is PuTTY. This is for Windows. If you're on Mac, I think it's different, something different. But for Windows, you can download PuTTY, just an SSH client to connect into a remote server. So just click the download button, just next, install, fairly simple there. And then we're going to go open that up here. Now I've got a few open already. Basically what you do is you just grab the IP address you were given. So this one here, you're just going to copy that and put it in this line up here. So this is the IP, it's just a test server I have that I'm using. So I'm going to put that in here. You're going to want to make sure it's port 22, connection type SSH, and then you're pretty much good to go. So you can open that or you can even save it. So if you type in like my project here, and then save, just so it's quicker for next time, and then next time you can just click on that and load, and you'll have the information preloaded. So you don't have to type it in every time. Yep, so we got that. We've got our IP, our port, and I'm just going to open that up. Okay, so here we are. It's the basically just an empty terminal. So it's saying who are we going to log in as. So again, wherever you find your kind of initial login information, see what username they want you to log in with. So for me, they're saying use the username root. So I'm going to use root and just log in as root. Then it's going to ask for a password. So here, this password is going to be the one they gave you. This is going to be something really complex. I find it's best just to type it out manually, but if you copy paste, remember it's Control-C on Windows, but then you got to right click inside of Linux to paste. But sometimes like if you grab a space when you're copying, it'll add that in. So I find it's best just to type it out manually. So type that password in. You'll notice when you're typing a password in Linux, it's not going to show up on the screen. So just type it in and then hit enter, and it is going to log you in. Yeah, so I have my own password. I've already changed it, but you're going to type in the new one that you get. So once we're here, let's just change the password for you, make it something a little easier. So we're going to do, I think it's password. I've got a little cheat sheet here too. I might open, but I think, yeah, password there. So you type in password like that, and then it's going to prompt you for a new password. So here we can just type in, I'm just going to type in the same one, but type whatever password you want to use. Just retype it. Okay, so the next time that you log in, you're not going to use that temporary one. You're going to use whatever you just set it to there. All right, so let's go into, I'm going to open up my little notepad here, and we're just going to do some firewall settings. So this technically isn't required if you have, the firewall isn't on by default, so Unity will work. We're just going to do some kind of bare bones. It's just a good thing to do. So if you're using Ubuntu, you should have also version 20. I found some sites like Namecheap will give you, it'll start you out on version 16. And the new Unity transport wasn't working. So you want to use, you want to make sure you're at least Ubuntu 20, I think, for the new Unity transport. Just one of the errors. There's many errors as you're doing this stuff that can come up. So that's just kind of one of them. Okay, so what were we doing here? Firewall, right. So you're going to want to do UFW allow 22. So 22 is the port that we are connected on. So I've already allowed it, so it's just going to say skipping. But you want to make sure that one's enabled, and then also whatever port that you're using. So whatever port is down here, this one down here, that's what you want to allow on the firewall. Otherwise, it's going to be blocked, and that won't be good. So we're going to allow that port 777 as well. Again, it's just going to skip because I've already got it enabled. So just do UFW status and make sure that 22 is allowed or enabled. That's very important because that's the port that we're connected on right now. So if you turn the firewall on when that's not enabled, you're basically going to block yourself out, and then you can't connect to anymore. And you'd have to go into on whatever service provider and reset it, and a bit of a hassle. So you don't want to do that. So make sure port 22 is allowed before you enable. So the next thing we're going to do is enable the firewall. So UFW enable. Yes. So that's what it's warning you of here. It's saying, hey, if you basically blocked 22, if that's not allowed, you're going to kick yourself out. So watch out for that. Okay, so now we have a basic firewall enabled with just the port that we're going to be using for Unity working. So that's good there. Let me pull up my notes here. Where are we going now? We got that enabled. Okay, so let's get the Unity project all ready to go, and then we're going to transfer it over. So if I just do an ls, which just shows the files in the directory, you can see there's nothing actually here, which is kind of not what we want, right? We want some files in here to run. So we are going to go into the build settings here, and we're going to set it up. So the first thing you want to do is switch over from Windows, Mac, Linux to dedicated server. That's going to be like the headless version. Then once you're in here, you want to just, so switch platform, right? So you're going to click on dedicated server, switch platform, and then target platform should be Linux. And you can click development build as well, just to get some more debug messages. Then we're going to hit build and create a new folder inside your project here. I just like to call it builds. So I'm going to go inside that new folder, and we'll call this, let's just call it game, and save. Okay, so this is basically just building, this is going to be the server version, so we're going to transfer this over to our Linux server using FileZilla. Okay, so we have that all ready to go there. So if we open up FileZilla, that is just, I guess, filezillaproject.org. Same thing as PuTTY, very simple to download. Just download the client, next, install. Should be able to figure that out, no problem. Then we're going to open up that software here. So I've already got it loaded up. Yours is going to be blank when you first get there. So you're going to want to go File, Site Manager, and we're going to start a new site. So what this is doing is it's basically just logging in like we just did in PuTTY, except it's logging in with this program, and then it's able to do stuff. So we got to give it the login information. So switch the protocol down to SSH. So you want that one. IP address, again, same thing. Use whatever IP address that you were given. It's the same one that you used to connect to PuTTY. So the same IP address for this thing. Port you can just leave blank. I think it just autofills if you have SSH selected. Login type normal, user, whatever the user that you are connecting in is. And if you're like a Linux admin, you've got this properly set up with different users. You can connect with whatever user you want to connect with, as long as they have the right permissions. I'm going to use the one that was given to me though, so we're going to use root. And the password here is going to be the password that you've changed it to. So you want it to be the most recent password. If you change the password and you put that kind of old default password in, it's obviously not going to be able to connect because that's the wrong password. Okay, so once that's all set up, you can just hit connect here. And then I've already got it opened and connected, so I'm just going to reconnect there, and then you can just see here it's doing what we did before. It's connecting to the user, connecting to the server. So now what you're going to have is two separate file systems. So the one on the left is your home PC, or whatever you're connecting from, and the one on the right is going to be the Linux server. So I just go into the root file here, and I'm just going to drag and drop the Unity project over. So not the whole project, you want to do the build. Right, so here, if we go back to Unity, if you look at the top left here, the actual Unity project is called My Project. So in FileZilla here, we're going to go into My Project. We're going to look for that builds folder, which you can see has all the stuff. So that's where I built the build to. So we're just going to copy that over here. So it's just drag and drop. So builds, you want the whole thing. That's going to have all the the executable and all the kind of supporting build information. So just drag and drop it over here and release. And it takes a while here. So you can see the queued files, successful transfer. So you're just waiting until that gets down to, I think it says like transfer successful or something. And that's what you're waiting for. So once you get to that, then we can go to the next phase. I'm just going to cut the video here because this takes a while. Okay, so once that has been switched over, we're going to go back to PuTTY here. And now when we do our ls, we're going to get the builds folder. So we're just going to go into that folder, so cd builds. And now we're in there. So if you do ls again, we're going to get a list of all the files in there. So the one that we want is this game.x8664. So that's the executable file. But for Linux, we're going to have to make it executable or give permission first. So we're going to do chmod, if I can spell that right, chmod +x game.x86_64. And that would be different if you had a different file name, if it wasn't game. So we're just going to do that, and that is going to change the, so we can execute the file now. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do /game.x86_64. Okay, and we're also going to do space dash s. So this is that parameter that we added in the code. So Unity is going to pick up on that, and it's going to understand that since it has that -s, it needs to run server. So it's going to start running commands right away, and we're not going to have to do anything. So we're just going to hit enter. And you can see we get this message running as server. So there's a bunch of other debug logs and stuff. But this is the one that we're looking for that we wrote. It's just running as server. And then it's going to start sending that ping out. So sending ping, I think I set it to every 5 seconds or so. So now if we connect on another client over here, we're going to have a debug message on the server that's going to show that we connected, and then this client is going to start getting pings from the server, if all has gone well. So we're going to go in here, we're just going to click Start Client manually, because we could do that on the client itself. And then if we go into the console, actually let's go over here first. Right, so we can see we got a 1 has connected, so that's showing that we got a connection, and then it's sending ping, and we are getting the ping from the server. So these two are connected now. Basically, if you have an RPC messaging system or whatever you're using within the Unity netcode for game objects, you can now send those messages back and forth, and they're all going to work just like if you had it on a local host. Now the problem with this is that if we exit this PuTTY program, it's actually going to shut down the server, so that's not what we want. So we're going to do Control-C, and that's going to exit out of that process. And we're just going to run it as a kind of a background process so that even if we close this window here, it's going to keep running. So to do that, let me find my notes here. Yeah, so we're going to do this one here. So this is no-hup, and then we're going to add that and sign at the end. And this is going to put it as a background process. So I'm just going to type that again. Let's just get the name of the file, so game.x86. Okay, so we're going to do no-hup, whatever your game name is, so /game.x8664. Still need that -s, and then we're going to do space and the and sign. So once you have all that, we're going to hit enter. And now it is running, so we can actually just type in top, T-O-P, and it's going to give us a list of all the processes. So you can see up on the top here we have this game process running. So that's the server version running in the background. So we can actually just exit out of this. We don't need that. We don't need that running anymore. And then if we go here, we clear that out. We hit play. You can see we're not getting any ping because obviously we're not connected. So we're going to start client, and then it should start pinging in a second here from the server, just like that. So even though we're not connected through PuTTY anymore, we'd have to log back in. The server's running this just as a process, so it's up as long as you want it to until you actually log in and shut that process down. So in order to do that, we're just going to go back to my project, either type it in or just load it back up. We're going to open that up. We're going to log in as whatever your username is, whatever your password that you set was. Just going to do an ls, see what folders we got there. Okay, so so we want to change directory into the builds folder. And then we're going to do ls again, see what's inside of there. So we've got that one. So that's the one that we want to shut down. So we're going to go top again. I guess I didn't have to go through there, but yeah, so top, we've still got that running, even though we didn't execute it again. And we're just going to press the K button. And once you press K, this little thing will pop up. It's just going to, as long as that's the one on top, you can just hit enter, or just write in the code, so 3909, to kill that particular process. But it's usually just going to be at the top, and then you just hit enter, enter. And that's going to send the kill signal so that it's going to shut that process down, and you can see now it's gone from there. And if we press clear here, we're no longer going to be receiving pings. So now we can't connect to the server or anything, it's not running, because we just shut it down. So that is pretty much everything. So we've set up the Unity project, we've transferred the files over, and then we've kind of set up the Linux server, we've ran the process, we ran it in the background so that you can, close down PuTTY and just have it kind of always in the background. Now that's just kind of the very bare bones setup, and realistically when you're doing this kind of stuff, there's always going to be some kind of small error. Like I was saying earlier, I found that I had Ubuntu version 16, and it wasn't working with the Unity transport. So UNet transport was working, but this one wasn't, and that took a while. It's just random stuff like that that you got to figure out. That's why it wasn't working. So I had to update to 20, and then it worked. So sometimes you're just going to get a blank screen. You're going to execute the file, and it's not going to work. So a lot of it's just kind of troubleshooting, just trying to figure out what's going wrong. Especially like if Unity changes, Unity's always changing its networking stuff. So you never know when something becomes out of date or won't work, or there's an extra step involved. But yeah, I hope that was helpful. And if you need any more help with this stuff, I have a Discord server where I just do general Unity stuff, kind of Blender, Unity, a little bit of web development. So just go check that out. And yeah, if you need any help, I'll usually be in there. All right, thanks for watching.